Hi dear students, welcome again to the new channel. For today's lesson, we have taken Celebration of Being Alive, Unit 3 of 12th Standard English text, and 3. This is one of the beautiful pieces of prose. I am Ilayaraja in Vidhyalakshmi school. You are all welcome. This in celebration of being, we have several very interesting factors that will really help us eventually to get ourselves better, to feel happy in our life. It is written by a very famous doctor, you might have heard. He is Dr. Christian Bernard, in celebration of being alive. Christian Bernard is not a writer, usual writer, is a doctor, very famous doctor of South Africa. I show you his picture. This man is a renowned cardiologist, heart specialist, I mean. So both are the same person. He is pioneered the heart transplantation first. This particular prose piece is very apt at this point of time. What I mean to say is, this world, people of this world are trying to survive one of the most dangerous and contagious diseases that world has ever faced. In this time of epidemic or pandemic, whatever you call in your terms, you must understand the sufferings of healthcare industry people, including doctors. They have suffered a lot. And if you really do not know how much they suffer, I can tell you, you are still living in an ignorant world. So we have to appreciate those doctors. For today's lesson, we have taken up contributions of a doctor, especially to the field of cardiology. I must say, doctors should have studied much about this man, because he is the one who operated upon the hearts for the first time. He was the one who performed the first heart transplantation surgery in South Africa, Cape Town, as early as 1967. After performing few surgeries on the animals, he used the same technique on the human being, and he came out very successful in 1967. Some of the techniques followed by Dr. Christian Bernard is followed by even modern doctors today. Credit goes to our superstar Dr. Christian Bernard. And additional information for you today is Denise Dorval is the first heart donor ever in the history of humankind. She was declared brain dead during a road accident. So her father allowed to donate her heart. The first receiver, okay, Louis Joshua of Cape Town, is the first. So unfortunately, though this surgery was very successful, and this patient Joshua regained consciousness, and this became a great news, very good news in South Africa, worldwide, across the world, I can say. But he was dead after 13 days. The second surgery was performed to another person. He lasted for 19 months. Then he passed away. The third surgery was performed on a person who lived 13 years and fourth 24 years. This is how his career started. He has written so many books about these medical procedures of heart and other things. So, such a great personality, and he has written this particular piece of prose. Okay, he is trying to say more about what is the meaning of living in this world, and what's the purpose of living in this world, and what kind of things we have to follow if we keep ourselves happy. Okay, first of all, before going to the first stanza of this particular prose, I would like to ask you some question. What makes you happiness, or what makes you sad? Some people around in your place will always tell, what kind of sin I have committed, why is this happening to me, why these things are happening to me, why some people are very happy about, some people are so sad always, what's the reason behind? So, this is the question that you have to keep in your mind. Keeping these things in your mind, you just read this particular stanza, you will understand more. See, more and more as I hear the end of my career. My career means doctor's career, Dr. Christian Bernard's career, South African heart specialist, right? As a heart surgeon, my thoughts have turned to the consideration of why people should suffer. Why people are suffering a lot? He is asking first question. He gets these kinds of thoughts and is asking himself, why poor gets poor, richer gets richer, and the people suffering keep suffering always. Some people lead a very sophisticated life. On the other side, some people live unsophisticated life. Fashionable life, unfashionable life, downtrodden life here, a sophisticated, rich life. And what's the reason behind? Why people are suffering? People sometimes ask themselves a very peculiar question, that is, why do I suffer? What is the sin that I have committed? Why it is happening to me? So, all these things. So, people are asking all these questions, right? So, he says, why people suffer? Suffering seems so cruelly prevalent. Prevalent means exist. It's present. It's present, cruelly present in the world today, right? Why these sufferings are there? He is quoting one example, dear students. They are, do you know that of 25 million children born this year, 12 million are unlikely to reach the age of 1 and another 6, right? Another 6 million will die before the age of 5. Do you know this question? So, this is one example that he is trying to give. Okay. 1 million is equal to 10 lakh. You just calculate. Out of 125 million children, 12 million are likely to reach the age of, unlikely to reach the age of 1. Another 6 will die before the age of 5. Out of the rest of the children, many will end up as mental or physical cripples. It means physically challenged or mentally challenged people. So, he talks about later 90s conditions. But today things have changed enormously because of the revolution on the medical field could save people. Out of 1,000 earlier days in 90s, 56 children are died or dead. But now, according to UNICEF, only 36 children die out of 1,000 children, that too in some of the African countries where medical facilities are not available. That's the reason. So it's asking that question. So, with this thing, these things make our doctor worried on crippled children physically, challenged children that you have seen on the screen. So, in second stanza, he says, my gloomy thoughts, my sad thoughts in this place. Gloomy means actually it's referring to the dark, but it's here we can say It's sad thoughts probably stem out, branch out, beginning from an accident I had a few years ago. What accident he had just see? 1 minute I was crossing the street with my wife, and after a lovely meal together, they had meal. After the meal, they are just crossing the road. Next minute, a car hit me and knocked me into my wife. She was thrown into the other lane and struck by a car coming from the opposite direction. Of course, he has recovered from the accident, but he recalls few years back what happened when he was crossing the street after a meal with his wife. A car had hit him. He was thrown into his wife. Again, his wife was thrown into the other opposite lane, where a speedy car had hit his wife also. Both of them were fatally wounded and they were admitted in the hospital. So, in such case, he thinks about so many other sad things in his life. Why is this happening to me? It's like a very common car accident. During next few days in the hospital, he was admitted in the hospital. I experienced not only agony is the pain, mental and physical pain. It refers to both mental and physical pain, and fear, but also anger. He was very angry. Why he was very angry after the accident? He is thinking, why is this happening to me? I could not understand why my wife and I had to suffer. Why we had to suffer? What's the reason for this suffering? Why is this happening to me? I had 11 broken ribs. How many ribs do you have? See, out of the ribs that you have, 11 have been broken because of this accident. And perforated lung, a damaged lung also was damaged. My wife had a badly fractured shoulder injury. Over and over, I asked myself again and again, I asked myself, why should this happen to us? Why should this happen to us? I had work to do. After all, there were patients waiting for me to operate on them. My wife had a young baby who needed her care. See, why is angry? Why God is giving this kind of difficulty for a doctor? Because he says, I have my patients waiting for me. My patients are waiting for me. I have to go and operate on them. I have to go and operate on them. They're waiting for me. And my wife has a child, a very young baby. She really needs her care. And why is this happening to me? And why am I suffering? He says like this, doctor in hospital, he was just admitted in hospital. Of course, he survived this accident. But among his thoughts, he recalls his beloved father. If he had been alive, he would have said, my son, it's God's will. It's God's idea. That's the way God always tests you. Suffering ennobles you, makes you noble. He purifies you, finally makes you a better person. But his father is no more, but he recalls his father. If he was available in this world, if he was alive, he would say that, my son, God is testing you and it will make you a better person. He says like this. Of course, many other people say like this, but doctor is not ready to believe these words of her beloved father. He says, but as a doctor, I see nothing noble in a patient's thrashing around in a sweat-soaked bed. What nobility I can find in patient's difficulty? Patients are thrashing around, moving around. They've been taken around to operation theatre, to diagnostic places, and ICU, from there, normal ward, so many places. And they are given very immediate treatments. What kind of nobility I can find in that suffering, and sweat-soaked bed. Sweat-soaked bed, he says like this. Sweating was there, that, okay, sweat-soaked bed. Mind clouded in agony. Mind is completely covered with agony. I told you the meaning of agony. It's a mental and physical pain. Okay, patients suffering from it. Because you have been to hospital sometimes, either for you or for your relatives now. We see in our eyes, with our eyes, that how people are suffering. Nor can I see any nobility in the crying of a lonely in a ward at night. So, what is the nobility that I can see in a suffering child, especially at night? People are just carrying, when the children are suffering from some kind of disease, even young children, before they speak out in 1 or 2 years now, they will never tell you what kind of difficulty they have with their body, but doctors will find it. So, these kind of sufferings, okay, will never give you any kind of nobility. He says like this. And
வருஷ கணக்கா கஷ்டப்பட்டு சம்பாதிச்சு ஒரு பள்ளிக்கூடத்தில் எடுத்துகிட்டு போய் உங்களோட பசங்களை சேர்க்குறீங்க. நீங்கள் சரியான ஸ்கூலில் தான் உங்கள் பசங்களை சேர்த்துருக்கீங்களா அப்படின்னு சொல்லி திங்க் பண்ண எவ்வளோ நேரம் நீங்கள் டைம் ஸ்பெண்ட் பண்ணுறீங்க. இங்கே வித்யாலக்ஷ்மி ஸ்கூலுக்கு வாங்க, இங்கே இருக்கிற டீச்சர்ஸோடு நீங்கள் பேசி பாருங்கள். அது மட்டும் இல்லை, ஸ்கூலை சுற்றி பாருங்கள். இங்கே ஆன்லைன் கிளாஸஸ் அட்டன் பண்ணுறதுக்கு கூட அவங்க வாய்ப்புகள் ஏற்படுத்தி தருவாங்க. இங்கே தாங்க பேனல் போர்டு, டிஜிட்டல் பேட் எல்லாம் வச்சு கிளாஸ் எடுக்கிறாங்க. குழந்தைங்களுக்கு நல்லா புரிகிற மாதிரி எடுக்கிறாங்க. என் பசங்களும் இதே பள்ளிக்கூடத்தில் தாங்க படிக்கிறாங்க. நான் அவங்கள வெறும் ஆசிரியராக மட்டும் பார்க்கல. அவங்க உங்கள் குழந்தைகள் தவறு செய்யும் பொழுது, அதாவது ஒரு உதாரணத்துக்கு நான் சொல்கிறேன், இப்போ ஆன்லைன் கிளாஸஸ் அவங்க எடுக்கும்போது இந்த குழந்தைங்க ஏதோ ஒரு தவறு செய்யும் போது அவங்க இன்னொரு பெற்றோர்களாக கூட நான் பார்க்குறேன். ஏன்னா அவங்க உரிமைகளோடு கண்டிக்கிறாங்க, ஃப்ரெண்ட்லியாக பிஹேவ் பண்ணுறாங்க. இதெல்லாம் பார்க்கும்போது எனக்கு ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமாக இருக்குது. நல்ல இடத்துல, அதாவது என்னோடய குழந்தைங்களை சேஃப் ஹேண்ட்ஸில் வச்சுருக்கேன் அப்படின்னு நான் ஃபீல் பண்ணுறேன். நான் சொல்கிறத கொஞ்சம் திங்க் பண்ணுங்கள். வித்யாலக்ஷ்மி ஸ்கூல் தான் பெஸ்ட்டுன்னு உங்களுக்கு தோணும். இல்லைங்க, நீங்கள் 4-5 ஸ்கூலோட கூட கம்பேர் பண்ணி பாருங்கள். வித்யாலக்ஷ்மி ஸ்கூல் தாங்க சூப்பர். நான் சொல்கிறத கேளுங்க. உங்கள் பசங்களையும் வித்யாலக்ஷ்மி ஸ்கூலில் எடுத்துகிட்டு சேருங்க. உங்கள் குழந்தைங்கள பெஸ்ட் ஆக்குங்க.
In next stanza, you can see, in those days, they didn't have sophisticated heart surgery in those days, he says. I have always found the suffering of children particularly heartbreaking. Suffering of children would be heartbreaking rather than the adults. As I told you, small children will not tell you what kind of difficulty they have, what's the problem that they have, but adults will tell where it gives you pain. Place of pain, place of difficulties, and what kind of difficulty you experience, that can be told to your doctor, but children cannot. That's why he says, always found the suffering of children particularly heartbreaking for the doctor, especially because of the total trust in doctors. They trust in doctors. Children will trust doctors like anything. And the nurses, they strongly believe that doctors will save them. They strongly believe that they are like God. Children have reposed so much of confidence in the doctors that somehow they will surely save them. They believe you are going to help them. They strongly believe that. If you can't help them, if you cannot give them the life, you cannot treat them, then they accept their fate. Their fate is ready. They are ready to accept any kind of thing, because when the doctors forsake a patient, that's all. Its end is near. That's the meaning. So they mentally prepare to accept the fate. They go through mutilating surgery. What is that mutilating? Some part of the tissues will be removed from you. That's a mutilating surgery. And afterwards, they don't complain because that particular area have been removed. So there is no complaint from them. So this is how the 6th stanza goes, and they totally trust in doctors. You might have experienced going to hospital and meeting doctors in your own life, right? Next para. One morning, several years ago, I witnessed what I call a Grand Prix. It's a car race, Formula 1 car race, you might have heard about it, of Cape Town's Red Cross Hospital. In Cape Town's Red Cross Hospital, there is a Grand Prix. So, what is trying to mean is different from real Grand Prix, right? I will tell you. Right? It opened my eyes. It means I have understood the meaning of my life, he says. To the fact that I was missing something, all my thinking about suffering. So, why do I suffer? What I have missed, I understood what I have missed. Something basic that was full of solace for me. Solace is nothing but comfort for me. I got a kind of comfort, solace, after witnessing that Grand Prix. What is the Grand Prix? It's a car race. It's not taking place in, there is no car race is taking place actually, but something is happening in the hospital and he changed his heart. And what is that? See, one morning, he says, one morning several years ago, I witnessed what I call Grand Prix, a captive children's hospital, and something has changed in that particular hospital. What you see on the screen is the Red Cross Children's Hospital in Cape Town, South Africa. All right. So what happened there that morning was that a nurse had left a breakfast trolley unattended. So remember, a breakfast is a table attached with 4 wheels. Okay, this is taken around by the nurse to give so many patients food and other things. So we call it breakfast trolley, right? So nurse, for some urgent work, she left that breakfast trolley and she left. Very soon after was commandeered, occupied by intrepid, brave crew of 2 children. 2 means one is driver and they consider themselves driver, and another one is mechanic, right? So trolley was occupied by, commandeered by intrepid, brave, okay, crew of 2 boys. Then what happened? The mechanic provided motor power by galloping, by moving fast along behind the trolley with his head down. His heading down, head is down, and is pushing, right? Pushing the breakfast trolley from down, from behind. While the driver seated in the mower's deck front place, held on with one hand, he has got only one hand, and steered by scraping his foot on the floor. By touching the floor and getting some force on it, he is trying to steer away the breakfast trolley. Also, it is pushed by another person. Okay, it's bending down and is pushing. He does not see, he is a blind. Okay, he's visually challenged boy. A choice of the role was easy because mechanic was totally blind. It says totally blind. One who is pushing is totally blind. He doesn't have to see things. He touched and started pushing. And the driver had only one arm. The boy has got only one arm. With the help of one arm, he was just driving the breakfast trolley. And what happened? They put on a quiet show that day. It was a beautiful show that particular day. Judging by the laughter and shouts of encouragement from the rest of the patients, so many patients around that place, they are encouraging, they are cheering upon, they are encouraging these 2 boys. It was much better entertainment than anything. Doctor was getting treatment. He was just very happy to see these boys giving complete entertainment in the flow. It was much better entertainment than anything anyone puts on the Indianapolis 500 car race. It is also a place where car race takes place. Even in that place, you cannot see this kind of great entertainment. So there was a grand finale of scattered plates. Then afterwards, what happened? So the plates were scattered around completely. And silverwares everywhere, spilled everywhere. And before the nurse and the ward sister caught up with them and scolded them and put them back to the bed. So when nurse is away, leaving the breakfast table, one boy started pushing. He was blind. Another boy was sitting in front and he was just driving, and all the plates and silverwares were scattered around. The nurse saw this and caught them and scolded them and put them back into the bed. But this made other patients very happy, and the doctor also became very happy on seeing those small children. See, this is what I wanted to show you. Indianapolis 500 Grand Prix, and this is in United States. And also let me tell you about these two. So these two children, I want to tell you about these two children, right? One is visually challenged, one more is physically challenged with one hand. Okay, so I want to tell about these children. So in spite of the suffering they have, and they are very happy and make other people happy. So this is the life, this is the lesson we have to learn in our life, right? Okay, in 10 cents, let me tell you about these two children. Mechanic was about 7 years old, small boy, 7 years, imagine, very small, tiny boy, 7 years old. One night, when his mother and father were drunk, they were drinking, right? After drinking with the effect of alcohol, what they would do? They would fight each other, right? His mother got angry and threw a lantern at his father. Mother got angry because both of them were drunk, and the boy was present, and they were fighting in front of the boy. His mother got angry and she threw a lantern at his father. Missed. It was missed, and the lantern broke. It was oil, somehow like kerosene, like oil lamp. What would have happened? Broke over the child's head and shoulders. It did not hit the father, but it fell on the boy. Then he was caught fire. He suffered a severe 3rd-degree burns. An upper part of his body was completely burning. Lost both his eyes. Both his eyes. At the time of the Grand Prix was going on somewhere. Car race was going on. So many places. Formula 1 car race was going on. He was a walking horror. But what would have happened? Just imagine what would have happened when his upper part of the body was caught fire completely. He was just walking with his head was completely burning. He was unable to imagine this situation. With a disfigured, mantled figure, disfigured. His appearance was completely disappeared, collapsed face, and long flap of skin. Skin was scaling down, hanging down from the side of his neck to his body. So this happened to the boy. So mother and father, Grand Prix Formula 1, mother and father, they were fighting in front of the boy. The mother threw a lantern, oil lamp on the father. It missed him and fell on the boy, and he got fire, right? This is how the suffering would take place, right? As the wound was healed, of course, even though it was a 3rd-degree burn, doctor somehow saved this boy. What happened after the wound was healed around his neck? His lower jaw became gripped, became so tight in the mass of fibrous tissue. Tissue caught it. He could not open his mouth. Okay, the only way this little boy could open his mouth was to raise his head. When he raises his head, the mouth will open because the lower part of the jaw was completely crippled with the tissues. When I stopped by to see him, doctor stops him. Hello boy, come here. Doctor calls the boy, stops and talks to the boy. The boy said, you know, we won. He was laughing, that boy was laughing. So doctor makes a small conversation with that visually challenged boy. He says, we won, you know, sir, we won. So it was like a race. He felt like a race, he won. He was laughing, the boy was laughing. The trolley's driver, and it's about the boy who had only one arm. He was also very happy. The trolley's driver, I knew better. I know him. A few years earlier, I had successfully closed a hole in his heart. The doctor treated that particular boy. He closed a hole at his heart. He had returned to the hospital. Of course, he has successfully done it. But there is another problem with this boy. He had returned to the hospital because he had a malignant tumor of the bone. Malignant means very harmful tumor, uncontrolled growth of tissue. It's like a cancer tissue. So he is admitted for that particular reason. Malignant, harmful tumor of the bone. It's not for tissues, it's for bone. A few days before the race, just few days before the race, his shoulder and the arm were amputated. You must understand meaning for amputated. It's not so easy to survive this. His shoulder also was removed, and hand also was amputated, means cut off, removed from the surgery. It's removed from the surgery, right? So during surgery it is removed. In order to save the boy, doctors removed his arm. So he became all right. So there was a little hope of his recovery. Even doctors did not have the hope of recovery. But he has done well. After the Grand Prix, doctor calls this race of breakfast trolley as Grand Prix. He proudly informed me, and he is also talking to doctor, that the trolley's wheels were not properly oiled. They did not put the oil to the wheels. But he was a good driver. He says, good driver. Sir, doctor sir, I am a good driver. But the wheels are not oiled properly. Otherwise, I would be a better driver. But he was a good driver. He had full confidence in the mechanic. He has a full confidence. He says, it is not oiled properly. Wheels are not good. Otherwise, I would be a better driver. He says like this. He has got that much enthusiasm and confidence. This changed the doctor. Okay, he suffered a lot. When he was hurt, when he was met with an accident, he felt, why is this happening to me? All these things he questioned. But after seeing these two boys, he became a changed person. There is a transforming experience he had in the hospital. Say, one boy is blind and another boy does not have a hand, but though they suffer from some kind of cripple, and they are very happy in this world. Okay, in such case, suddenly I realized that these two children had given me a profound lesson, a strong lesson, very big lesson in getting along with the business of living. What's the business of living? What's the meaning for business of living? How it's going on, to move on with what we have. To move on with what we have, right? Because the business of living is joy in the real sense. Business of living is not money, is not suffering. It is the joy whether you have money or not, whether you live a life of sophistication or not, sophisticated life or not. But what is the meaning of real life is joy, that is happiness, that these people have got so much. That's a real sense of the world, not just something for pleasure. Amusement, recreation, it's not being pleasurable, it's not getting pleasure, it's not amusing things, it's not recreation, but the joy, how much joy you have in your life is what matters. It's not the pleasure, amusement or recreation, it's a joy completely, right? Business of living is the celebration of being alive. You must understand, business of living is celebration of being alive. All right? Say celebration, these people are celebrating the life. Okay, you are alive. Among so many people who have been killed, who have been died recently, God has given you the life. You celebrate it. Why do you sit and cry? What's the meaning of sit and cry? Sitting and crying will not give you anything in your life, right? So, I had been looking at suffering from the wrong end. We are just sitting at the wrong end and looking at the suffering. Okay, you don't become a better person because you are suffering. This is very important line personally I admire most is this line. You don't become a better person because you are suffering, right? This is very important. People are suffering a lot, right? They're looking so sad, sometimes crying. This does not change anything. Suffering, I tell you, my dear students, suffering will not give you any solutions. Underline the word. If you're so sad, if you're sulking, if you're suffering, you're feeling very bad, these things will never ever give you any kind of solace or any kind of solutions to any of your problems. I agree. If suffering gives you a good solution to your life, you keep suffering. Let me come and join you. Let me also suffer. When you say that suffering gives you a solution to your problem, let's suffer. But understand, suffering never gives you any kind of solutions in your life. Therefore, do not suffer. But you become a better person because you have experienced suffering. But when you have experience of suffering, you will be a better person. There's no doubt about it. Because you cannot understand the real taste of water unless you feel a thirsty in your life. All right? See, we can't appreciate light if we haven't known darkness. If you have been living in darkness continuously for 1 week, then you will understand the importance of light. You will understand the importance of life only when you live in the darkness. When you feel thirsty for 3 or 4 hours, when I give you water, you will understand how much water you need. Actually, what's the importance of water? Okay. Then similarly, now we can appreciate warmth if we haven't suffered a cold. If you have been living in the cold region, you will not understand that warmth is very, very good. And these two children showed me that it's not what you have lost. It's not what you have lost. Never worry over what you have lost. Right? What's important? That's not an important one. But what's important is what you have left with. You have to be very happy with what you have. You should not be worrying over what you have lost in your life. Right? So, this is what I wanted to tell you in this beautiful piece of lesson. Okay, the people who suffer a lot, they are sitting in the wrong direction, in wrong angle, and they are looking at the life. Okay, so we must understand the fact that we have to be very happy with what we have in our life and be contented with what we have in our life. Children, thank you for watching this beautiful piece of prose, and never forget to subscribe and share. Thank you. Bye-bye.